Hello, my name is Tracy Allen, and I want to welcome you to Cooking with Some Friends. Welcome to Cooking with Some Friends. Today, Katy is in the background. She's cutting up our vegetables and stuff for our Indian tacos, our fry bread tacos. Jake is going to be making the fry bread for us, and I'll show you the meat that goes into the tacos. Now, this is a recipe that I've made several times, but every time we start to make it, we tape or do a video of the beginning part, and then we get so caught up in stuff that we forget to finish the tape. So we've started this several times, so hopefully today we'll actually finish it. Since it's our lunch, we better finish it. Yeah. Okay, so Jake, do you want to explain, while Katy's cutting that stuff, do you want to explain what's going on with the fry bread?
Sure. So the recipe that we're using, we're actually doing it half again more because we weren't going to double it because there's not enough of us to justify doubling it. So it originally calls for 2 cups of flour. I've got 3 cups in this bowl, half again more. And it calls for a tablespoon of baking powder, but I'm going to add 1.5 tablespoons of baking powder. Start with the one that's not as full. Oh wow, this one's really close to being empty.
I know, that's why I got out my other one. And while he's measuring that out, the baking powder, I'm going to start the meat that goes in the tacos. And in my container, we're actually going to double the meat because if you have it left over, it works great for regular tacos or to use it in other things. So I have about 3 pounds of hamburger in my skillet, about 1/4 of an onion that Jake chopped up for me, and I'm just going to brown those two together. So that'll take a little bit of time. And when the fry bread is to the point that we're actually making the tacos out of it, the taco shells, there's a trick to it that I have not mastered. So maybe you guys can, since I know I can't. So we roll ours instead of, there's a way to manipulate the dough with your hands and going back, kind of like you would a pizza, when you throw a pizza.
That's Italian, though.
I know, but it's kind of the same process. Okay, so you did the baking powder, now what?
Yep, 1.5 teaspoons of salt. It only calls for a teaspoon, but I'm going 1.5 because we'll bring half again more. And then I have a feeling that there's another ingredient above there that I cannot see. Clippy got in the way. And then it calls for a teaspoon of sugar, and I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons. Hate to reiterate that many times, but it helps me remember.
I know, I'm the same way because I get busy with something. I made a recipe yesterday that I was kind of experimenting. So when I cook with my cousins, we were going to do some different kinds of moonshine. And I was experimenting with it, and I'm going, okay, I'm cutting this in half for just me to have here and to try the recipe and to see if I want to make any changes with it. And I kept having to tell myself, cutting in half, cutting in half.
Right. And you have to redo the math in your head several times.
Yes,
over.
yes. So, because I don't want to change it on the recipe card because I may not always want to do just the half recipe. And okay.
I'm going to whisk all these dry ingredients together just to get them incorporated so we don't end up with one really sweet part of the bread and one that's not. I imagine that's why I do it. I don't know. I just made that up.
Yeah, it's it's that, and to make sure that you don't get pockets of like the baking powder. So, is this can empty?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounded good in my head, so
yeah.
Why not, right?
Okay, so then you're going to pour in what? And use a fork. Change over to a fork because it'll gum up in your whisk.
So I'm going to add what the recipe calls for is a cup of warm water or milk. I have
Or half and half.
I have 1.5 cups of milk
and
water. So I'm going to pour that in, and I'm going to get it incorporated with a fork, and then I'm just going to dive in with my hands. I just don't want to do that right away because then I'm just going to end up with really sticky hands, and I don't really want that. this gets sticky fast.
Okay, now I would just use my hand.
Okay.
That's why, it's just, can I show you?
Sure. Wow. I don't know.
Just get in there and just like you're kneading it almost in the bowl. And until it's easy to handle. Because you really don't want to overwork the dough, but you do want it so you can actually roll it out. So then he's going to finish doing what I was just doing, and as soon as it forms into the ball, then he's going to put a little bit of flour on the counter and knead it just a few times. Again, you don't want to overwork it.
And if you overwork it, it will become springy, right? Is that the right?
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, you can't hardly get it rolled out.
Right.
And really, really sticky.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is why I never liked making doughs and stuff.
I do. I love feeling the difference in the texture when you
I don't like
work
trying
the dough.
to get it out of my fingernails whenever
Oh,
I'm
that's
done.
true, but
Not that I have much fingernail to get
well,
out.
that's one reason when you like when I'd go to chef training.
Cut your fingernails down.
Well, I always have my nails done, and it was one of those things that they would say, well, since you're here for a week and not actually going to through a full program that will allow it, but if you work in the food industry, normally it's short nails that are clear so they can make sure that your nails are clean. And because really
Also,
there's
you could
not,
just wear gloves.
yeah, there's not a whole lot less appetizing than seeing somebody with really gross fingernails working with your food.
All right, I'm gonna lightly flour my surface
Surface.
over here, so that my fry bread dough does not stick to the counter. Running out of room over here, but that's all right. Now I'm gonna dump this out on this surface. Knead it a few times.
Okay. And then when he's done with that, he'll just stick it back in his bowl and cover it with a clean towel, and then he's going to let it rest for 10 or 15 minutes. And is that what I told you, 10 or 15? 5 to 10,
I don't remember.
whatever. Just let it rest for a while to let those ingredients start working. That's probably good, Jake. Okay, so our burger is ready to go on with the next step. We took 3 pounds of burger and put 1/4 of an onion in it. And if you like onion, then you can go half an onion or a whole onion, whatever you prefer. But then I'm going to, since I'm doubling, I'm gonna add a 1/4 cup of chili powder. It calls for 2 tablespoons, but 4 tablespoons is the same as 1/4 of a cup. Chili powder. I mean, you gotta do this. And then I want chipotle chili powder, and with that I'm going to add just 1/4 of a teaspoon. Just adds a little different flavor to it. Then I'm going to add a tablespoon plus a teaspoon of cumin. And I'm gonna add 2 teaspoons of oregano. Jake's over here to my left, so if you're wondering how it's disappearing off camera so easily. 2 teaspoons of oregano. 2 teaspoons of garlic powder. Yeah, I had one on my hand. I thought I saw it. Ha ha ha. Salt and pepper to taste. And that video is going right. Oops. A lid to my salt fell off.
Sorry, that was my bad. I didn't put it back on.
It's okay.
There you go.
Watch it draw
Salt. And mix those into my burger. Just make sure it all gets evenly distributed. And then, Jake, will you measure me a cup of salsa? That's the measuring cup right there. So we're going to add that cup of salsa in here. Give us our tomato base. Now you can also add paprika if you like it a little spicier, and I do. So I'm going to add just a little. Katy, not a lot. Just a little.
And also I know that Mommy doesn't like spicy.
I know, she doesn't like spicy, does she? And then very little, which would also add some more heat if you want it, a few red pepper flakes. But I'm going to take it easy for Katy's sake.
Put the whole thing in there.
No. Now the only thing I have left to add into my meat sauce, and then I'm just going to let this kind of simmer a little bit, is I have some kidney beans. And you can add kidney beans, you can add red beans, you can add black beans, you can add pinto beans, whatever kind of beans you like.
Baked beans.
So I'm going to turn this on low and put it towards the back burner because it's going to be time to make the fry bread. I want to pull that pan up towards the front. Okay.
I flour on the floor.
So Jacob took the dough that was in the bowl in one big ball and he separated it into about 12 balls of dough. Then he's rolling those. Now you can manipulate these with your hands if you're really talented. I just haven't mastered the craft. So he's rolling those out so they just fit inside the oil in whatever pan you're using. I've got about a cup and a half of oil in my pan and I've been heating it. So we're gonna fry it on one side till it's golden brown.
Oh, I gotta do this fast.
And it will bubble up. If you want to, you can pop those bubbles, but I don't mind having them. Now, I bought lard to use for this when we did these at Jenny's, but I didn't use it, and I found that it's probably better for us that I didn't use real lard, even though the flavor would be really good. And the more and more of these that you make, the darker they're going to start coming, so you need to regulate your heat pretty well. If you want to, you can put paper toweling down on your plate to kind of absorb some of that extra oil.
Oops.
And you can cover them so as you keep going, as you're frying the others, the first ones stay warm. But there's fry bread number 1. Ready to go. Number 2. That's all there is to it. We'll show you a picture of them all completed. Thanks for joining us for this session of Cooking with Some Friends. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And find us on Facebook at Cooking with Some Friends.